We are going to be talking today about diversifying from the federal only to also including the SLED market in your government contracting business. And one of the reasons I want to talk about this is we are artisan federal, right? We don't talk about the SLED market a whole lot. We love the federal market, and I still believe in the federal market. I know despite what you'll read in the news or on social media, the sky is not falling in the federal market. The federal market is still growing. It's still an amazing market to be inside of. I highly recommend it to folks. I think for a lot of companies, it is the way to go. But there are a lot of folks that don't know a lot about the SLED market. And with everything going on, people are looking at other markets to check out and things like that. And so it's only natural that you start looking around, poking around, and you can go in the commercial market, which is usually the jump. It's usually fed or commercial. And people can just skip over the SLED market. And if you're not familiar, SLED is state, local, and education. And that includes not just the state, but counties, municipalities, cities, all that type of stuff. There's all kinds of different areas of the SLED market. I'm not going to get into a lot of that today. What I really want to focus on is just the opportunity. I want to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of expanding into this market. And then I want to give you some practical advice on how you can attack this. So I've got a lot of notes today to cover for you. And I want to kick it off with the pros and cons. So on the pros, one of the first ones is there's usually less bureaucracy, regulations, compliance, all that kind of stuff. So when you think about the federal side, there's the FAR, there's DFARs, there's all kinds of things like that. And there's different certifications at the federal level that are a little harder to get. And you got to go through different hoops and stuff like that. So there's less bureaucracy most of the time. Depending on what state you are focused on, there's less regulation, but some, like California, New York, are known for actually having more regulation. So it really just depends on the state you're after. The next one here is there's typically shorter sales cycles than the federal market. I've seen larger procurements in the federal market take years. That usually is not what happens in the SLED market. You're usually talking days, weeks, months for something in the SLED market. So that's really attractive. There's often more contracting opportunities because when you start to branch out at multiple states, now you're getting into hundreds, if not thousands of opportunities to sell what you sell. There's some complexity to that, which we'll talk in the cons, but there's more contracting opportunities. And so there's a lot of different options for you to chase contracts. So that's a really good one. There's very flexible procurement methods. So there's cooperative purchasing agreements, discretionary spending, there's emergency funds. There's all kinds of things that happen. There's even mid-year budget cycle shifts. So we'll talk a little bit about that. That can happen and can increase things. And then one of the things I really like about this market is it's very relationship driven. That's a pro and a con. But on the pro side, you can develop relationships because to me, one of the things that's really nice is the decision makers and influencers are typically easier to reach in the SLED market than the federal market. So that's some of the pros. On the con side, one of the challenges is it's a very fragmented market. So even if you take away the fact that there's 50 states, right, and you just focus on one state, you have the state level, but then you have the county, city, municipality level, and it's very fragmented. And some of them, especially if you're in a bigger state, if you don't have a local presence, that can be difficult. Then you're talking about there's different sites that things are happening on. So you've got to be in all these different sites in order to find all the opportunities. So there could just be a lot of challenges when it comes to the fragmented market. Whereas in the Fed market, you're dealing with sam.gov for 90% of the opportunities you're going to chase. That's where they're going to get posted. Or you're dealing directly with a contracting officer for things that could go under direct award or under simplified acquisition. So it's a different market from that perspective. The next one is it's often lower contract values at the SLED market. So depending on what level you're at, so if you're down at the local level, the money that's going to come out is likely in the tens of thousands of dollars instead of the hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions, which you will often see inside of the federal market, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because it's often easier to win a small contract than a large contract. But the fact that you have to stack multiple contracts to hit your revenue goal is what is often difficult for people. So there's that aspect of it. One of the things that I see is there's often more competition from local vendors, so that can be a challenge for you. So a lot of agencies do prioritize in-state business. So if you're not in the state you're trying to work in, it's going to make that more difficult for you. Whereas in the federal market, they're very used to people working all over the country, all over the world, and doing business anywhere. You just have to have boots on the ground in some situations, that sort of thing. So the more competition at the local level can be very difficult. Then the last con that I'm going to cover here today is one that's actually really near and dear to my heart. It's budget volatility and payment delays. So states fluctuate based on tax revenues and legislative changes and all kinds of different things that are going on. And one of those examples is the state of Illinois. I used to live in the state of Illinois, and what we found was we had a budget deficit of around $3.5 billion, and the state was notorious for late payments and all kinds of different drama around how they were doing things, even payments to nonprofits. They were getting very slow rolled on their payments and stuff like that. On the flip side, Tennessee, where I live now, and I absolutely love, has a 3 point something billion dollar budget surplus. It's very small business friendly. They pay their bills on time. They're known for that, and they're known for just how focused they are on small business and business in general. And so I really appreciate that about the state of Tennessee. So those are pros and cons. Let's get into some actionable steps here for you. So one of the first things I recommend is to target a state or locality. So start by picking one. My recommendation is to start with the state you live in. And if you live in a big enough region or metro area, start with that first and get to know that. Depending on what you sell, you can even target like the smaller cities. So let's say you live in a town of 4,000 or 5,000, you could target it. I live in a town of 354 people. So not going to be a whole lot of opportunity right here, but in the metro area I'm at, there's 500,000 people, and there's city stuff, there's universities, there's all kinds of options for me within a 20-minute drive. So I could easily go to different meetings and things like that. I could show up in somebody's office. Those are really good things. So target a state, review the state, find their city procurement portals and state procurement portals, and focus on those so that you can do step 2, which is register as a vendor. So almost all these states have their own vendor registrations, and you can focus on that. And then the next thing around the registering as a vendor is not just doing whatever, or not just registering in their procurement site, but looking at what certifications at the state level. So your MBE, WBE, DBE, any of those kind of things that will give you a competitive edge. Those are very, very good for you to look at. And also understand, do you need an actual certification such as SDVOSB or VOB from the SBA in the state you operate? Because depending on the state you operate, they may just have a checkbox like the government used to have, where you can just check, I'm a service disabled veteran-owned company, I'm a woman-owned business, I'm a fill in the blank, or whatever the stuff is. So get to know how your state does that. Then you can leverage cooperative purchasing agreements or contracts. That's another one that's out there. So there's a handful. So there's NASPO, Value Point, Sourcewell, Omnia Partners, GSA, and Buyboard. Those are just a handful of them out there. You can Google this, cooperative purchasing agreements or contracts for the state you're looking at. Those are basically just contract vehicles. And when you're starting to kind of look around at who's buying what you sell, then you will need to see, is there a contract vehicle that we need? The next one, which I talked about, is kind of a double-edged sword in the pros and cons, was building relationships with local decision makers. So if it was me, I would be looking at which state and local government city council meetings I could attend, school board meetings, chamber of commerce lunches, industry days, conferences, networking events. I'd be looking at all that type of stuff, because decision makers and influencers show up to those things. You're going to have the mayor of the town and all those kind of people. And these people are very easy to reach. And if you're doing a city council meeting, you will see pretty much everybody that is in that little city council leadership. They will be there giving a report on something, and you can see those people shake their hands, that kind of stuff. And then I would take the next step and ask them, who are your procurement officers for department heads and things like that, and ask them to meet those people. And again, because they are so accessible, it makes it easier for it to do. Not only are they accessible at these meetings all the time, they are usually in your backyard, are fairly close that you can drive to. And that's one of the things that makes them more accessible than, let's say, if you live in Tennessee and you're trying to do work in Virginia or DC or North Carolina, you may have to drive hours to get to one of those meetings, where if you're focused in your backyard, it's a lot better. So one of the next ones on here is to adapt your proposal strategy. The SLED RFPs often focus more on cost and local impact rather than federal performance. So they're more focused on that. So think local, highlight your local presence, the community benefits, your adaptability and ability to execute quickly on site because you're local. People love to be able to highlight that local business just won a contract, and that money is going to pour back into the community, not only in their, in their business with their employees, but their employees are going to spend that money locally, and that makes a big impact. So those are things that you want to be able to point out about how you are local, and you will be able to impact the local economy if you are in that state and you're working that way. If you're not in that state and you have employees in that state, or maybe a satellite office in the state, then that's where you can highlight, that impact as well. The next one is, you're just going to need to leverage technology if you're going to the SLED market. Even if you're in one state, I highly, highly, highly recommend using bid matching tools. There's a lot of state procurement websites out there to track, and most of the bid matching tools out there that do SLED stuff target these. We have a special relationship with MyGovWatch. There's actually a link I'm going to post with this video, so you can go get a 30-day free trial. Their website says 14, but because you're clicking my link, they will automatically upgrade you to a 30-day free trial of their bid matching tool, MyGovWatch, and you'll be able to check that out. You're going to need a SLED tool in order to get this. And by the way, I make no money if you sign up for that. It's a tool that I think is really good, and I think you should check it out. We don't get paid for that. The next thing is, you need to update your website and your marketing materials that you're focusing on the SLED market. That's really important. People need to see that, and that you're not just a federal contractor. And then I would say you need to do two more things. One is, you need to test the waters on these smaller contracts. Many states have discretionary spending, credit card purchases, micro purchase stuff, just like the federal market. Test the waters. See how it is to work with those agencies before you go head first. Your city, your county, your state level. See how you like it, because there may be a political issue that's holding you back. There may be where, let me give you an example. They may have somebody that, because of donations or campaign money, they are, giving business to somebody. I know they're not supposed to do that. You say, hey, Mike, that's not supposed to happen. But guess what? It happens all the time. There's a lot of corruption in this world, and it's often more at the state level than a Fed level. So there's political and social things that can stop you from getting contracts. There's also payment issues and all that kind of stuff. You may not like working with the people, and you may decide to go to a different state or a different municipality or whatever it may be. So test the waters with some smaller contracts. Then the last thing here is, you need to stay really informed and adjust your strategy. So monitor legislative changes, with your state and local government, to know what's changing in the rules. You can set up Google alerts to do that kind of thing, but do that. And then you will want to review the SLED procurement trends as they happen, and then just adjust business development. Let's say they make a change to their version of the micro purchase, or they offer a new contract vehicle, or whatever it may be. Like, you really got to keep a pulse on that. And like I recommended, Google alerts is a really, really good way to do that. So I think the SLED market is a valuable opportunity for a lot of people. It's not only valuable, it's viable. And for contractors that have been in the Fed market, it's often, from a red tape perspective, an easy transition. You just have to figure out how to navigate it. And again, that's why one of the recommendations I make is checking out the bid matching tools. I think those are super valuable. If you want to continue to get insights like this from me directly in our Inner Circle calls, I highly recommend you come join us. It's on Wednesdays at 1:00 Eastern. It's really valuable for folks to attend those. We go way in depth on topics like this, and do open Q&A and individual strategy with folks to help them figure out how to apply this right to their business. And then there's the community aspect, where you get to network with other members and see how they're dealing with and navigating issues like this. So if you have questions, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. We'll see you next time.